There is an unspoken selection that happens within narcissistic families. A child is unknowingly chosen to carry something that doesn't belong to them. They become the repository of the collective shadow, the recipient of all the guilt, shame, and pain that other family members refuse to acknowledge. This child receives an invisible title, the scapegoat. But why you? Why, among all the children, were you chosen for this cruel role? Why were your tears dismissed, your successes minimized, your mistakes amplified until they became evidence of your problematic nature? The answer is hidden in the depth psychology that Carl Jung unveiled when exploring the unconscious mechanisms of the human psyche. Jung discovered that families, just like individuals, possess a shadow, everything they reject about themselves. And when a family is unable to face its own darkness, it needs to project it onto someone. You were that someone. But what Jung revealed about this dynamic goes far beyond the pain. He showed that the scapegoat, unknowingly, carries the power most feared by the narcissistic family, the ability to see through masks. And today, you will discover the 5 exact reasons why you were chosen for this role, and how this choice, in fact, reveals your deepest strength. Are you ready to look into the mirror of your selection? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's exactly what will set you free. Look in the mirror now. Look at that child who always felt different, out of place, as if they didn't truly belong in that family. Look at that teenager who carried an inexplicable guilt, as if their very existence was a burden to others. Look at the adult who still carries invisible scars, who still asks themselves, why me? How many times did you hide behind the mask of the problem child because it was easier to accept that identity than to confront the truth? How many times did you swallow your anger, suppress your voice, dim your light, just to maintain the illusion of family peace? How many times did you self-sabotage in relationships because, deep down, you believed you deserved less love, less respect, less life? How many times did you choose partners who replicated the same pattern of rejection and blame you knew since childhood? Do you recognize this pain? Do you feel the weight of this mask? It's because you were programmed to carry something that was never yours. You were trained to be the repository of others' shadow, the guardian of collective guilt, the perfect scapegoat. But here's the truth. Your narcissistic family never wanted you to discover. They didn't choose you for weakness. They chose you for strength. They chose you because you had something they feared, the ability to feel deeply, to question, to see beyond appearances. While you carry their guilt, they live in illusion. While you feel the pain, they remain anesthetized. But you are here, seeking answers, and that means something within you refuses to accept this role forever. Do you recognize this inner struggle? It's because the time has come to understand how this mechanism works. It's time to discover the 5 exact reasons why you were selected, and how to transform this cruel selection into your greatest liberation. To understand why you became the scapegoat, we first need to comprehend what Jung called the projection of the shadow. In depth psychology, the shadow represents everything we reject about ourselves: our fears, inadequacies, destructive impulses, and unacceptable truths. Healthy individuals do the arduous work of recognizing and integrating their own shadow. But narcissists, by definition, cannot tolerate any imperfection in their self-image. Instead of looking inward, they project their shadow outward, especially onto those who cannot defend themselves, their own children. Imagine the narcissistic family as a distorted solar system. At the center, there is a dark star, the primary narcissist, who demands that everyone orbits around their emotional void. This dark star produces no light of its own. It survives by sucking the energy from the planets around it. Within this system, each family member is assigned a specific role. There's the golden child, who reflects the narcissistic grandiosity. There are the invisible children, who learned not to exist so as not to bother anyone. And then there's you, the scapegoat, designated to carry everything the family doesn't want to acknowledge about itself. This designation is not accidental. It follows a precise psychological logic based on specific characteristics you possessed since childhood, characteristics that, ironically, represented your greatest strength, but which were distorted by the toxic family dynamic. The scapegoat becomes the official repository of the collective shadow. When something goes wrong in the family, the blame automatically falls on you. When there's tension in the air, you become responsible for dissolving it, even if that means absorbing all the toxicity. You become the fuse of the system, burning out so that the rest can keep functioning. The first reason you became the scapegoat is the most painful to acknowledge. You felt too much. In a family that operates on emotional denial, a child who feels deeply represents an existential threat. You were that child who cried when witnessing injustices, who became genuinely disturbed when seeing suffering, who asked inconvenient questions about why things were the way they were. Your emotional sensitivity functioned as a truth detector that the family preferred to keep buried. Narcissistic families rely on emotional anesthesia to maintain their dysfunctional structure. When you demonstrated authentic emotions, you broke that anesthesia. You forced everyone to confront realities they preferred to ignore. Because of this, your emotions were labeled as exaggerated, dramatic, or problematic. Observe the pattern. Every time you expressed genuine pain, you were blamed for creating drama. Every time you questioned abusive behaviors, you were accused of being too sensitive. Your capacity to feel, which should have been celebrated, was transformed into evidence of your difficult nature. The second reason is even more revealing. You questioned the family narrative. While other family members passively accepted the distorted versions of reality presented by the narcissist, you had the uncomfortable courage to point out inconsistencies. You were that child who asked, "But why is Mom crying if Dad said nothing happened?" You noticed when stories didn't add up, when behaviors contradicted words, when the family reality differed from the reality presented to the outside world. This ability of yours to see through masks represented a mortal threat to the narcissistic system. Narcissists depend on absolute control of the narrative to maintain their power. When you questioned this narrative, you threatened the very foundation of the dysfunctional family dynamic. Because of this, your natural tendency to seek the truth was reinterpreted as rebelliousness, disrespect, or ingratitude. You were taught that questioning was dangerous, that your perception couldn't be trusted, that your version of events was always wrong. The third reason is perhaps the cruelest. You still loved, despite everything. While other children might have developed a protective coldness or emotionally distanced themselves from the family, you maintained a genuine emotional connection, and that made you the perfect target. You were that child who would still run to comfort Dad after he had yelled at you, who would still try to please Mom even after being humiliated by her, who still believed that if you were good enough, you would finally receive the love you so desperately wanted. Your capacity to love unconditionally instead of being valued was exploited. Narcissistic families instinctively know that the scapegoat will tolerate more abuse because they still hold out hope for acceptance. You became the safe place to unload frustrations precisely because they knew you wouldn't leave. Recognize the trap. Your love was used against you. Your loyalty was transformed into vulnerability. Your capacity to forgive was interpreted as permission to continue the abuse. The fourth reason reveals an even deeper truth. You were different from them, and this difference exposed the mediocrity they tried to hide. Perhaps you were more creative, more intelligent, more empathetic, or more authentic. Perhaps you had natural gifts they didn't possess or dreams they couldn't comprehend. In healthy families, these differences would be celebrated, but in narcissistic families, they represent a threat. Your natural light made their artificiality more evident. Your unique talents reminded everyone of what they could have been if they hadn't chosen the mask instead of authenticity. Notice how your successes were minimized or even attributed to luck, how your talents were dismissed as unimportant or impractical, how your dreams were ridiculed before you even had the chance to pursue them. This dynamic didn't happen because you weren't good enough. It happened because you were too good for the dysfunctional system they had created. Your authenticity exposed their falsity. Your ability to grow and evolve highlighted the emotional stagnation in which they lived. The fifth and final reason is the most liberating to acknowledge. You were chosen because you had the inner strength necessary to survive this role. On some unconscious level, the family knew you could handle it. They knew that no matter how much they tried to break your spirit, something essential within you would remain intact. This is not a justification for the abuse. It's an acknowledgement of your extraordinary resilience. More fragile children might have become golden children or invisible children as a survival mechanism, but you had an inner strength that, even if not consciously recognized, was perceived by others. Jung teaches us that our greatest strength often first manifests as our greatest wound. The fact that you were chosen to carry the family's shadow does not reflect your weakness. It reflects your unique ability to transform darkness into light. You developed extraordinary psychological resilience, a capacity to see through illusions that others don't even perceive, a deep empathy forged in the fire of pain, an authenticity that refuses to be completely destroyed, no matter how much pressure is applied. Recognize this. You were not chosen as the scapegoat by chance. You were chosen because your soul had the rare quality of being able to carry shadow without being corrupted by it. And now, understanding these 5 reasons, you can begin to transform this curse into your greatest blessing. Now that you understand the 5 reasons for your selection as the scapegoat, the time has come to do the most important work of your life. Reclaim your true power from the hands of those who tried to distort it. Grab a journal or open a blank document. You will dialogue with that child who was forced to carry others' shadow. You will recognize your genuine qualities that were turned into weapons against you. First, write a letter to your emotional sensitivity. Apologize to it for all the times you tried to suppress it to fit in with the family dynamic. Recognize that feeling deeply is not a weakness. It's a superpower that allows you to connect with truth in a way others cannot. Second, honor your capacity to question. This courageous child who refused to accept distorted versions of reality deserves to be celebrated, not punished. Write, "Thank you for never stopping your search for truth, even when it cost me the love I so deeply desired." Third, recognize your unconditional love as the strength it is. You didn't love because you were naive. You loved because you had an extraordinary empathic capacity. This love doesn't need to be eliminated. It needs to be directed first toward yourself. Fourth, identify and list your unique qualities that bothered the family. Your creativity, your intelligence, your authenticity, your dreams. These weren't flaws. They were precisely the characteristics that made you a threat to their dysfunctional system. Fifth, recognize your inner strength. Write to that child. You survived what should have destroyed you. You kept your essence intact even when they tried to erase it. You are stronger than any of them ever imagined. Now close your eyes and visualize yourself symbolically returning all the guilt, shame, and responsibility that were never yours. Imagine yourself removing the heavy mask of the scapegoat and revealing your true face, the face of someone who chose the courage to feel, question, and love in a world that punishes these qualities. You are no longer the repository of others' shadow. You are the alchemist who transforms darkness into wisdom, pain into compassion, rejection into self-determination. You have changed. The moment you understood the 5 reasons for your selection as the